Accountability is a measure of a leader's height. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Our topic of discussion today revolves around three key areas. One is politics, economics, as well as accountability, as well as transparency. Joining us tonight on the show to discuss all this and more as to know where Sri Lanka is heading today and in the next year are a few key individuals that we've invited. Let me quickly introduce them to you. Attorney at Law Nadir Shani Pereira, Executive Director, Transparency International Sri Lanka, joins us on Face the Nation for the very first time. Congratulations on a new appointment, Nadir Shani, and welcome on the show tonight. Also joining us tonight on the show is Dr. Priyanka Dunusinghe, Senior Lecturer of Economics, University of Colombo. Also, Dr. Anil Jayanth, who is no stranger to Face the Nation, Senior Lecturer, Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, University of Sri Lanka, as well as Professor Kennedy D. Gunawardena, Senior Professor of Accounting, University of Sri Lanka. Let's start off tonight's show with Dr. Priyanka Dunusinghe, Senior Lecturer of Economics, University of Colombo. Dr. Dunusinghe, interestingly, we are just a few weeks away from the year 2020. It has been quite an eventful year. COVID-19, general election, then came the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. We saw some cabinet reshuffles happening as well this year. How do you view 2020 in terms of politics as well as economics?
Thank you for inviting me to the show. And I will start my brief by discussing the economic events, because that is where that I have some fairly good understanding. Now, with respect to economics, I think economy of the country, we saw that this year was really a year which the economy witnessed number of challenges. For this year, we had no, the budget for 2020, which was officially presented at the end of 2019. So most of the government expenditure covered either with the vote of account and other, later got the parliamentary approval. And so when it comes to investment programs, major investment projects were not implemented. Investment project, funded by the through the government budget. So with the COVID-19, actually the economy severely affected, mainly from the first wave as well as the second wave. So it is expected this year Sri Lanka will record a negative growth rate. First quarter was negative even without having the full impact of COVID. So towards the end of March, we actually country witnessed lockdown and all. So I think it is very clear that this year we will have a negative growth rate as predicted by IMF and World Bank and ADB. So as a result of that, a lot of people lost their jobs or witnessed some wage cuts. So there are a lot of economic hardship in that sense. From the politics in the field of politics, we witness introduction of this 20th Amendment. As a result of that, we saw that some of the inclusive institutions which were introduced under 19th Amendment were basically erased. So that is, I think, in that sense, to my understanding, I think we went back for a democratic setup, for a democratic country to prosper economically. We need to have inclusive institutions. Some of the inclusive institutions that were introduced under the 19th Amendment actually were simply we removed. So that is, I am sure that it is a negative. We will, the country will experience some negative, consequences in future.
Dr. Dinasinghe, a lot of emphasis has been made on the defense budget as well as the sports economy concept of the present regime. Any political relevance there? Because we know that Namal Rajapaksa is the Prime Minister's son, as well as the Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs. So any political relevance with regard to allocating a lot of money?
Yeah, I think it is very,
as well as sports.
Yeah, I think it is very clear when it comes to budget. The allocation of funds depend on the relative influence of the minister's influence. So it is what we call the political economy of preparing a budget. So in that context, it is very clear now. Even though we agree broadly that government. The increase in government investment is a positive thing at this moment. Certainly the government has missed the priorities. Government has allocated money into sports economy, allocated money into some of the other areas. I think instead of allocating that amount of money, large sum of money to those sectors, government should have allocated or initiated some of the the development programs which could support people and businesses which were affected by the COVID-19. I think certainly the political economy has played a key role in allocating funds to various ministries. I think it is very clear.
Thank you very much, Dr. Priyanka Dinasinghe, Senior Lecturer of Economics, University of Colombo. I now move my attention to Dr. Anil Jayant, the Senior Lecturer, Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, University of Sri Jawaharlandapura. Dr. Anil Jayant, interestingly, the words the failed state concept, the failed governance structure concept has been discussed extensively now in social media as well as the parliament. What is your take about the government not getting their priorities right? Because you just heard Dr. Priyanka Dinasinghe saying that the government has missed out on a lot of opportunities to develop the country's economy, and they missed out on the priorities at present. So what is your take on this?
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, yes, you are right. Like now the discussion is there about it's an idea whether the government is or the state is failed. In fact, among other indicators to look at how a government is just taking charge or ruling a country, one of the key indicators is the ability to repay your foreign debts, mainly what we call sovereign debt. Because the sovereign debt is something that you have borrowed in dollar denominations or foreign currencies. So unless you have adequate amount of resources to repay them, then you are in trouble. So that is the main, like there are other areas we can talk about, like why state is going to be failed. So main the discussion is there because the government is actually is in a debt trap. Actually, I would like to call it as a debt pandemic, not a trap. So it's increasing. Even now government says that we are going to reduce the debt level to 65%, but it's unlikely because whatever the new borrowing that you take has to be utilized for the repayment in addition to use it to cover up your budget deficit. It's like normally who has basic understanding about, so knows what's going on about these things. So if you borrow to fulfill your budget deficit and repay your extensive debt, so you are in really a trouble. So that's why major the rating agencies, there are many, among them three, the Moody's, S&P and Fitch ratings have already downgraded Sri Lanka 2 times in 1 year, 2020, not only once. In April, they downgraded us from B+ to B- situation. And in November and September, respectively, 3 organizations downgraded to C. So if the camera can be focused, I can show you how these ratings are done just for the benefit of viewers. So this is...
just hold it like that, just a little bit lower.
Okay. Okay.
We'll try to,
if possible, if possible.
Yeah. So you can, we'll try to get a camera across.
So this is the starting from AAA position. So these are 3 the major credit rating agencies. triple A is the top position. So we are nowhere. You can see so many ranking here, about 8, 9 ranking in this page, starting from triple A to B something. We are not there. And this is the second sheet. Then BA1 and goes down to the default. That is the last one. That is the D. One level just above D, that is the default level, one level above D is what we call highly risky position. That is marked by Fitch Ratings and Moody's as C. So different letters are used. C is a combination, but once you come into that particular category, you are in C. And CAA is the Moody's. So recently, the S&P also, a couple of just days ago, downgraded us to CC position. That means actually we are really a verge of a bankruptcy situation. So then they have information, because they do not say something without having any supportive evidence. So therefore, it is the responsibility of the government to show contrary, differently, no, even though based on this information you say these things, we are capable of doing. It shouldn't be a simple or mere statement.
No, but that statement has already been issued by the State
That is
Minister
true. That
of
is a mere
Finance,
statement. That's what.
Dr. Ajit Kumar.
The statement, this has not been really substantiated by possible actions in future, because action should lead to foreign exchange earnings. So that is why even Citibank, a couple of days ago, said that even Bank of Ceylon is the biggest bank in Sri Lanka. So why did the Citibank downgraded Bank of Ceylon even? Because Bank of Ceylon is a strong bank in Sri Lanka in terms of local banking, but in foreign, when they deal with foreign exchange, so there are a problem because we don't have adequate resources. That could be one of the reasons why even the governor of the central bank issued another letter day before yesterday, restricting all the non-banking financial institutions in Sri Lanka to suspending them to invest in ISBs issued by Sri Lankan government. Why? To protect these reserves. So we are in a real crisis, yes.
Dr. Anil, are you trying to say that the government's budget proposal 2021 will lead to Sri Lanka going on default next year?
No, it depends. So with this present situation, unless a miracle, or we do not know, with the given figures and facts, it looks like it would be really default.
Because last year, when we had economic pundits on Face the Nation, they all said that by the end of 2019, Sri Lanka will move towards a default situation. However, Sri Lanka has been far a resilient nation, and we've always come on top of all the problems that we've faced.
Right.
Will this also be a mere statement made by economic pundits like you?
What I am saying, saying based on the present information. As of now, the total foreign reserve level is 5.5 billion. So within a year, government has to repay debt amount in total US dollars 6.7 billion. That is more than that. So unless government is, showing that how they are going to fund it, of course that would be a problem. So how do they find foreign reserves? So as of now, they can't increase quickly exports. So that is one source. So everybody understands. So another source is foreign remittances from workers. That is also quite not that possible at this particular situation of pandemic. Only possibility that the government can do this thing is to get a huge foreign investment, but I have a huge doubt with the prevailing conditions whether it would be possible. But there is another one point, let me just few seconds I would take. In the budget proposals, they have said that now, I do not know, so this is the situation where we have to debate. Of course, I suggest government, there is a proposal. If you bring foreign investments, so we do not ask for the source, so pay 1% tax and invest. So we do not know whether that would lead, or what is the implication of this thing. So sometimes, I'm not saying, I'm just telling you there is a possibility covering to this particular tax clause. So with that, if new foreign investment comes with that, that might, but they might solve that problem, but that might lead to huge social consequences. So that is my
leaving that notion aside for a few seconds, I want to quickly move my attention to Attorney at Law Nadir Shani Pereira, Executive Director of Transparency International Sri Lanka. Taking an eagle's eye view on the present budget for the year 2021, Nadishani, what is your take about transparency and accountability? Because you just heard Dr. Anil Jayantha making a very startling revelation on the contents of the budget speech about this 1% tax-free holiday for those who are investing money to the country. I can read that excerpt as well, so for the benefit of our viewers. So the Prime Minister in his budget speech said, for the benefit of the country, I request from all entrepreneurs to utilize the funds hidden locally or internationally in order to evade laws relating to taxes and foreign exchange. It is expected to make legal provisions to provide a tax pardon to entrepreneurs, thus utilizing funds for any investment facilitated by the budget under the payment of taxes amounting to 1%. So what is your take on all this? Do we really, are we really on the path of accountability and transparency with this regime in power?
Thank you, firstly, for giving Transparency International Sri Lanka this opportunity to be present at this discussion. Well, in terms of the budget and transparency and accountability, I would first like to say that what would be most important is to be transparent and accountable about how these allocated funds are actually utilized during the year. You know, that is where really the question remains. We can have beautiful budget proposals and say such and such projects are there, but looking back, when we look back, even from the previous years, do we see, can we even find the information about what exactly happened to the envisaged all those projects and funds? Can an ordinary citizen find out this information? Now, if we are to really build the trust, public trust about our budget, to get the people to really look up to this budget and the actions thereafter, then the information needs to be proactively disclosed by
the previous government, Nadishan, just to interrupt you for a second there, didn't the previous government bring forth the Right to Information Act to enable the people or the public or the media institutions to know what exactly is going on in the treasuries or in the bank accounts of state institutions?
Of course, yes. I mean, that is one of the very, very positive developments of the last couple of years in terms of transparency and accountability is the Right to Information Act. And we have one of the best in the countries around. And definitely it gave the power to ordinary citizens to ask these questions from the public institutions, to ask what happened to that project that was promised to my village to build that bridge, that road, and that did happen. That did happen.
So are you trying to say that is not going to happen next year?
No, I'm not saying. Actually, I would like to use this forum to encourage the citizens. Now, in terms of awareness about this, in terms of awareness of the really useful nature and the user-friendly nature of the right to information mechanism in Sri Lanka, I don't think we have sufficient awareness. Now, our organization and several others, at the beginning, the Right to Information, the Commission did several massive awareness campaigns, and we do whatever up to now. But in terms of overall understanding, I think the amount of people who are using may not be sufficient, but for those who have used it, amazing results have come in terms of, you know, like transformational things such as, you know, you are getting clean water to your village just by asking a question, why we don't have water. You are getting a bus that suddenly stopped coming, and this is the only source of transport. You know, suddenly the bus is back. You're getting a principal to a school which languishes without one for months. I mean, I can go on. But the real spirit of right to information actually is, now there are two sides, the ones who are giving the information and asking, Shami. So it is that you actually don't wait till the information is requested. requested. You provide the information proactively, and that is where we were advocating and facilitating, supporting also the public institutions, especially at subnational level, in terms of, say, their websites, update with the real information, not only about the plans, but what are you doing about implementing those plans, so that people don't need to go and ask.
But are you trying to say, you sound worried, Nadishani, when you speak about the Right to Information Act and the contents and what people can do. Are you envisaging that there will be a self-imposed censorship on the people to obtain information when this government is in power? Is that what you're suggesting? I'm trying to figure out what you're suggesting, because you're trying to say that there's a platform available, henceforth you can go and make inquiries and get that necessary information. But then you're also trying to say something something that worries the people as well.
No, not really. What I wanted to urge is, while I encourage the normal citizen, everybody out there, to be aware, to inform yourself that we have the Right to Information Act, and information is power. See, why those examples I said, why those facilities suddenly the people got by simply asking information, and then if those were not coming due to certain corruption activities, the authorities would rather provide that. So I think it's an awesome tool. If I would say, I'm requesting that the awareness, even through media such as you, your organization, need to spread this awareness that this tool is still there and you can use it. But I was also now speaking to the governing fraction, to the public institution, public authorities, to the government, to the ministries, that you also have a duty, if you really want to uphold the spirit of this act, Right to Information Act, that you proactively share this information, that you are always taking deliberate steps to ensure that there's transparency at every level and that you're willing to be held accountable.
How sure are you that the people who require or request for this information are not penalized by the relevant authorities in the country?
Well,
how can Transparency International Sri Lanka take accountability? Getting the information is one thing, but if you are being penalized for getting that information, people have to be protected. We all are quite aware that even Sri Lanka's witness protection laws are inadequate at present as we speak. So what do you have to say to the people who want to get the information but are fearful that something may happen to them because they requested for this information?
Well, there are different aspects, different type of information. So maybe the previous examples I gave were not so controversial to put the inquirer or the person who's asking the information into a risky situation. But I understand in maybe asking certain controversial information. Now, so far, Shamir, with our experience working along this act with the communities, there has not been that kind of situation. Actually, when information was requested, the public authorities took action to actually, get their house in order. Sometimes, if I may say, to be more efficient. Sometimes it's just about inefficiencies due to that opening space for corruption. But say that the institutions like CISL, we are here also. If a particular person wants a particularly sensitive information, does not want to go put down your name, and you don't need to really reveal a whole lot of details about yourself, but you might have to say where to give the information and in that sense reveal yourself. So you can also talk to us, and then organizations such as us, where on behalf of you, the RTI application could be submitted by organizations. So in that sense, you have that protection in that sense. Right. Of course, we have the victim witness protection law, Chambi. The problem is in, again, implementing it, in resourcing the authority. So that is another subject on its own. Yes.
Thank you very much, Attorney Adlon Dishani Pereira, Executive Director, Transparency International Sri Lanka. We, of course, will grill you as the show goes on about money laundering, as well as how the government intends to make black money white, all that and more. After we'll hear Professor Kennedy D. Gunawardena, Senior Professor of Accounting, University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. Professor, The government was very popular at one point, especially during the first wave of COVID-19, and even when President Gotabaya Rajapaksa took the reins last year, he was a very popular, a strong president for the country, and the expectation of the people was for him to deliver. The first wave of the pandemic, he did deliver. However, second wave of the pandemic, the government probably lost a lot of depth, if I may say it right. How has the government fared thus far economically in light of COVID-19?
Yes, thank you first of all inviting to me. Now, economic developments, we can't think about short run. We need a couple of years to think about that. Now, I would like to go back first in Yahapalana government. They started in the good move, done a good job, and especially democracy they have established somehow. I'm not going to say perfect, but it's certainly okay. But they couldn't do they couldn't properly manage the economy. The reason in that time, the opposition is so stronger than the government. Not the number wise I'm talking about that, maybe the voice or maybe activities or opposition activities, etc. I have seen that, I think we all have seen that every day. When you go to Peta or a fort, you can see the strikes. Right, people are walking here and there, nobody walking, strike. Under that struggling situation, they did quite a good interesting work, certain achievements they have done. But unfortunately, in the East attack, the government totally out of the control. And under that situation, the Gotabaya or the present president get a good popularity, and people had a lot of promises with him, and he has given a large range of the expectations, and people were, really, he became a hero to the country. First wave, what you said is...
He became a hero to a certain section of the country, not the entire country.
We'll see. Because in the vote basis, in the vote basis concern, I still feel that it's a big number. I think he became a hero because the numbers are bigger.
No, because you said numbers are not bigger when it came to parliament.
No.
Now you're saying numbers are bigger when it came to people's voice.
Yes.
So that's contradictory, Professor.
Yeah, especially the total votes are concerned, 69 million what he got. It's comparatively, it's a big number in that particular period because of his popularity, and a lot of things are connected with that. But the first, what you said, that first wave, he did very well. But it only focus only for an election. That wave, what he has done in that particular period, that totally he focused to win the election. Nothing like managing the pandemic, nothing managing to the, no forecasting, no planning, nothing. That is why when the second event come, or second wave come, whole society right now in a panic situation. No one working, even though people working in the less hours, and people are in stress mood, and nobody have a future directions, and our whole industries like construction industry, tourism, you can't think about those things, no need to give a figures, everybody working with that. Now in the second part, the second wave, they didn't have a plan, no reserves. No,
so
yes.
Professor, can I safely say, with the remarks that you're making, that the government's intention during the first wave of the pandemic was only the elections and nothing else?
Yes.
The second wave, when the second wave took place, the government is mismanaging this whole scenario because there is no election around the corner and they do not know how to manage the country's economy.
Yeah. In one sense, it is right. But only thing is,
no, I'm
without
trying to gather
plan,
what you're trying to say.
Yeah, without a planning, you have to plan, and under the first wave, they have to look at the future.
So they didn't look at the future because they were only focused on the election.
Yes, only focus on elections, and they have done that job and achieved what they wanted. right, get a massive number of election, whatever the opposition may be, they limited to the little bit. What they wanted, they have done that. Anyway, I think the no planning, it's a big issue. No forecasting is a big issue. Running a government, right, you need a proper plan. Especially you want to make, now say, you look at the budget. How much they spend for health compared to the others. I think for they are given more potential, I think more priorities to defense, highways and local government. And the very small amount, and they have cut certain budgets, I think health budget and education budget. Now you can look at that, they never look at, they never think about that, the second wave. Maybe they, I don't know whether they know or not, I think something missing. I think now the community facing a big issues based on that. What I really feel right now is still, now post-COVID also coming, I think after another few periods of time. Where is the plan we have? We don't have any plan, no vaccine yet, right? Maybe the Ayurvedic drug should be a supplementary, but no wave, no vaccines. But so many countries right now, even India also, their supply chain is started to start providing a vaccine.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor. I want to open the floor for questions from our journalists. On to my immediate right today is Charlotte Benedict. On to my immediate left is debutant Muad Razik, as well as on to my far left is Tarusha Kumar Singha. To give the devils his due today, we'll start off with Muad.
Thank you, Shamil. My first question will go to Dr. Anil Jayantha. Doctor, how necessary is that the government reversing the tax breaks and increasing taxation levels, and also to raise revenue and cut unnecessary spending like at Sri Lankan, where there is a huge overemployment? And are they afraid of doing this because of a political motive, or are they afraid of losing an upcoming election? I mean, it's bitter politically, but don't you think that this is necessary by the authorities?
Yeah, actually, good question. In a way, one of the major purposes of a budget is to address the inequality in income distribution. To tackle this issue, the taxation is the tool. So that's the fiscal policies. Fiscal policy, basically, if you really want, because it's a fact that, so there is the huge income disparity in Sri Lanka. So therefore, you need to reduce indirect tax. So within our region, now all the other countries have taken measures to bring them down to 60, 50, 40 sometimes. That could be the reason our government also, so previous government said that we would bring it to 60. But rather, if you just take 20 years, so still our indirect tax proportion is well above 80%. So this tax deduction and all those things are not from this indirect, from the direct. Actually, even under normal circumstances, it is good in a way to strategically look at the places where we can take more taxes. Sometimes huge wealth may have been accumulated in many places in idling them. So those huge funds never come to the production processes. You may see them in the stock market only. They invest this money and trade it and take it back. So they never invest. So from that perspective, so giving these unnecessary tax cuts may further aggravate the situation and widen the gap between rich and poor. That there wouldn't be maybe sustainable economic development that might lead to so many other questions. As you pointed out again in the Sri Lankan Airlines. So one of the problems, so we need to tackle, especially in this situation, post-COVID situation, we need to act together as a society, as a country, not to maximize or favor individual interests. So on what basis, so is Sri Lankan Airlines going to play a strategic role to rebuild the local production in Sri Lanka? So my view is, my interpretation is, it's not. So these are specific purpose enterprises where huge public the funds can be easily pumped there. Once you pump there, legitimately, legally, you can take it out. So therefore, even so, you may just witness from the corruption point of view. So you can't say that there is no corruption because there is no theft. Actually, you steal public money legitimately. So that is really dangerous. So that is one of the biggest problems. And I would like to highlight another point together with this particular budget, the coming to tax and other things. Like before going to debate about the allocation, tax rates and all those things, actually this budget has lost its face value. So these tax cuts and all these things just to show off. Real tax impositions and all those things would come later, bulk or the major the burden will go on to the poor people. Why I am saying this thing? If you take the budget speech, because this time there were two budgets, two appropriation bills within 1 month, 2020 and 2021. In 2020, the budget speech, in the English speech, it entailed 3 annexes. One is the summary of the budget. In these annexes, there are 2 numbers at the below without having any corresponding name. So these 2 numbers are 15,016 and 16,003. They are none other than the GDP for 2019.
No, but,
I'm just trying to tell you.
Dr. Anjan, because we have limited amount of time for all 4 of you to debate today on Sri Lanka's budget. I want to drag your attention to the Sri Lankan Airlines issue that you just mentioned.
Yeah, Sri Lankan Airlines issue.
Yeah, but the present government seems to be having its direction right on Sri Lankan Airlines at present. Why? They in fact are going through an employee redundancy program of 1.4 billion Sri Lankan rupees to give a golden handshake to the employees at Sri Lankan Airlines. So they have a proper way to go about, isn't it?
No,
and you're saying there's corruption.
Redundancy. So you said that like, so I didn't get your question.
No, the Sri Lankan government at present has allocated approximately around 1.4 billion Sri Lankan rupees for an employee redundancy program at Sri Lankan Airlines.
Right.
So that direction in terms of Sri Lankan Airlines seems to be right, isn't it?
Yeah, in a way, like
so they did make mistakes with Mihinaya and all that. That's a different story altogether. But right now they've got their marbles right.
Theoretically, just to address the current or the present situation, it looked. I mean, it is seen to be good. But if you just take a longer term, strategic point of view, that also might provide an opportunity for some employees to take a big chunk from that and just go away. But still, so government has not shown its strategic position on Sri Lankan Airlines. In a way, so entire population in Sri Lanka contribute for Sri Lanka to maintain Sri Lankan Airlines.
That's easy to say, but sitting on this particular chair and trying to say that Sri Lankan Airlines has not been placed under a strategic position is easy than doing it practically, because right now with COVID-19, tourism has come to a grinding halt across the world. And you can't have a strategic point of view for an industry of this sort right now.
I would ask a very simple question. So actually what is lacking is that part, that I mean, so to plan to develop tourism or local, the production of goods and services, and not to pay more attention or allocation of more funds to Sri Lankan Airlines. Actually, if you have a proper plan for attracting tourism and to deal with this study, there's getting tourists. So it is not necessary that you need to have your own airline to get tourists to Sri Lanka.
So are you saying that Sri Lankan Airlines should be privatized?
I do not say that whether it should be privatized or not, but it's not a critical enterprise.
No, but they tried doing that as well.
That's what I'm telling.
And they failed to do so.
Because if I say that the privatized, so that might be taken with the wrong perception. But I'm saying is, so it is not a strategic or the critical public enterprise that the government should keep, to be honest.
Yeah,
so it could be managed by others.
I want to drag my attention to Dr. Priyanka here. State-owned enterprises, we know that, have been making losses after losses year on year. The Petroleum Corporation and the CEB, for that matter. However, we had a positive growth in 2017 2018 in the petroleum sector. However, that is yet to be seen on numbers as well as profitability. Do you think the government's direction on state-owned enterprises have to change? They have to move towards something more substantial to bring in revenue for the country? Like privatization should be the ethos of the government right now?
Yes, I think it is a very good question. As I think now during the election time, through their manifestos, they promised various mechanisms to look into the problems in state-owned enterprises, because most of the time politicians are to ask how they plan to tackle the big losses incurred in state-owned enterprises. Now, sometimes they say that Singaporean type, management is style, and sometimes they keep saying various models and say that with that they could overcome whatever the losses made by these institutions. But it is very clear now, the budget deficit and then the borrowing from local and as well as foreign, all we have to face, or we have to incur as a result of big losses incurred in these state-owned enterprises. Now, through the 2021 budget, government has increased its role, starting new businesses and promoting new businesses under state, without putting in place some institutions and mechanism to guarantee the efficiency of state-owned enterprises. I think what is required is, whether you privatize it or not, government must introduce a mechanism which make state-owned enterprises efficient and profitable and make no losses at least. Now, without addressing that, I don't see that the government could address the problem of this big budget deficit, budget deficit and borrowing. All these, if you need to address, you have to, the government needs to come up with a plan how to avoid these losses. What we see, we don't see, instead of introducing institutions, government keep increasing its role in the economy. So we are heading towards, or we will witness more and more in future institutions, state-owned enterprises which make loss.
I'd like to direct a question to Attorney at Law Nadishani Pereira. Now, since this budget was presented, and since the previous, for a number of years now, when the appropriation bill comes into play, into the debate, we always speak about bridging the budget deficit, we speak about the debt burden in the country, but we haven't, judging by the current situation that we're in, we haven't quite been able to address that issue. The government has now come and introduced a program for entrepreneurs to bring funds into Sri Lanka without questioning the source. Now, Dr. Anil Jayantha expressed concern over what this could really result in. We've always been speaking about the problems that we are facing in this budget and so on and so forth, without speaking too much of the solutions. Now, you too, Nadishani, has expressed concern over this program of allowing people to invest in Sri Lanka without questioning the source. So my question to you really is, if not in this way, how? And if not now, when?
Yes. Well, what we call these asset repatriation programs, or these voluntary tax compliance programs, are very much prevalent, accepted ways that in countries the governments tend to breach this kind of budget deficit when there is foreign exchange pressure. And in this COVID situation, I can understand the need. Right now, the need is to bring the informal flows of funds into the system, improve the tax compliance. So while immediately you will have more funds coming in, because there's an amnesty given saying if you have invested elsewhere and hiding your money, okay, without paying tax for that purpose, we are saying okay, you can bring back, we will forgive the penalty, the prosecution, and the amount you have to give. But going forward, you have to become a lawful taxpayer. Now, this is the idea. No? Now the thing is, looking back at how these have been implemented, institutions such as the Financial Action Task Force, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, the IMF, I mean, these organizations have given very serious guidelines cautioning the governments that if we are to go into this, you need to have certain essential aspects in place, right? Otherwise, you run a huge risk. You might short term have all these funds coming in, but in the medium and long term, you can have dire consequences. They are talking in terms of the economy. And of course, like Mr. Das said, also in terms of socially, because like you say, the socially, because here, okay, we are opening the doors for those who evaded tax, but within that there would be people who invested elsewhere because the source is unlawful, like from terrorist financing to drug trafficking to human trafficking. These funds are also there.
But of course, the budget proposal includes sections that say you can't have any court cases against these funds. It must be free in that perspective, at least.
I mean, these have been invested elsewhere to obviously not have all these court cases.
Right.
So these will come, you know, through like.
So do you think that money will come through this program?
It can come, and this is why we have also raised concerns, like you said, even on Anti-Corruption Day in our message, we have raised these concerns saying, be cautious, because it was just last year that the FATF took our country out of the grey list because they do the assessment of the countries looking at the anti-money laundering mechanisms and the counter-terrorism financing framework to see how strong it is. Now, being in the grey list or the blacklist is not something we would want at this juncture whatsoever, because the institutions that will provide us funds, foreign funds, foreign loans, and more importantly, foreign investors, they check these ratings. They wouldn't want to be, you know, choosing our country if we are in the grey list. So now, then when it comes to FATF, with regard to this kind of voluntary tax compliance and amnesty schemes, they have very strict rules. They are not willing to relax the mechanism, the requirements for this anti-money laundering.
But the problem is, Nadishani, we are in a situation that we have to scrape the bottom of the barrel right now. So can we be choosers as to who's bringing picky as to who's bringing in the money, or must we focus on the money itself and start developing the country?
You know, this is a country, right? It's not even an individual taking decisions, right? So as a country, we need to, right? I mean, these look at the sources, like the dirty money. If you look at what dirty money mean, and the examples I gave you, we have enough problems, like you highlighted, as it is. Now, do you want more problems in the near future?
No, I want to, Sharon, just for a second, if you don't mind, please.
Yes.
I want to go back to 2017 when the then finance minister said that there is someone who has deposited $2 billion US dollars to the Sri Lankan Foreign Remittances Fund from Brussels, from Belgium, and this money will be utilized to develop the country. At that time, Transparency International was not really vocal about where the money was coming from.
We did publish a statement.
We had Ashoka Bisekar at that time.
No, we did raise our concerns, Shamin. Honestly, you can find the statement on our website.
I am trying to find a statement on your website, but I really can't. But you all were not making a fuss back then. However, when this budget is presenting somewhat of a progressive budget as deemed by the government, you all are making a fuss about money laundering and black money and white money and all that and more.
But like I just said, I would reiterate, okay, like say you're saying not to worry about all these risks, but what about the risk of
I'm not saying, I'm not in any way suggesting not to worry about the risk. That is why the expert panel is sitting here today. If not, I'll be seated there and you'll be seated here.
Yes.
But my question is, must we really think about all
those
that?
Factors, yes.
All these factors when Sri Lanka is already in the rut?
And what about the fact that I just said about going back to the grey list? Now, that's a real possibility looking at the FATF rules. So do we want then, when it comes to the 2020 ranking, again to go back to that list? Then again it's going to become counterproductive. Here we get some funds here, and then by next year our foreign investments will start dwindling. So
but Nadisha, do you think otherwise? Do you think that this government brought in this clause particularly to benefit an individual? Because we saw the 20th Amendment of the Constitution being brought forward to bring someone, a close associate of theirs, to the Parliament. That is why the one aspect of the 20th Amendment of the Constitution, which clearly articulates that those who have foreign passports also can contest and be elected to power. So do you think that this clause would have been brought in because they wanted to favor one party? Is that something that is suspicious?
Well, I am unable to. Yeah, I'm unable to comment on the intentions of this behind this particular proposal, Shami. But I would say, just like you and me, the people are watching. The people would also want to know. Right, and why and what measures you are taking to prevent those type of black money from coming. And you know, it's not the first time that Sri Lanka has proposed schemes of tax amnesty. From 1964 to 2003, there has been 10 schemes like that, and the most known one is the 2003 one, where you know the taxpayers who would now disclose and bring in the money were exempted from 26 laws. Basically, the Indian Revenue Connected laws, and that brought the highest amount of funds to the country. There could be, there are legal ways of doing. It's quite restricted, and it's very cumbersome even for the banks and financial institutions, because they are the ones who are asked to implement the anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing rules. Imagine a whole lot of funds coming. They still have the same staff capacity, and now they are supposed to check the source. You know, they are supposed to ensure that it's coming from a country that is not in the grey list. How do you do all of this? So that is why we are saying the benefits and the negatives might outweigh the perceived benefits. This is the only way we can address this COVID economic crisis, I would ask.
But you know that the budget has now been passed, whether you like it or not, it's going to be implemented.
So we can only raise and advocate for greater transparency and proper mechanisms to be brought in place then.
Dr. Priyanka Dunasinghe, continuing on this discussion on possible solutions to the fix that we are in right now, judging by what has been discussed already, it's quite hard, at least to say, I wouldn't say unlikely, but hard to get in clean money into Sri Lanka, because we've been downgraded by Fitch, S&P, Moody's. Also, the outlook for the future, especially in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, isn't that great. And as Nadishani quite raised concern over bringing in dirty money into Sri Lanka and risking getting back on the grey list of the Financial Action Task Force on anti-money laundering, it's not a good idea to get in dirty money as well. Where can we strike a balance? What should we really do? What could we do?
Yeah, I think it is a very good question, because now, with respect to this getting into grey list, I think when it comes to attracting more foreign investment into port city, so when you think in that terms, we have to have a good investment outlook, and you know, doing business and other indicators must have a comparatively a good picture. So while agreeing with the concerns raised by previous speakers, actually we have to agree at this moment. We all know that our economic situation is not really in a good shape, you know, facing huge debt crisis, as well as the budget deficit, and also that we have to, I mean, we can justify the government proposal to tap this particular source, as some of the government have done it earlier and some of the developing countries have done. But at the same time, we need to make sure that this will not happen again and again, because that will lead to a what we call the moral hazard situation, where that people behave in a bad manner, expecting such grants, such provisions in future as well. So if the government can put in place a mechanism that guarantees that such activities are not allowed, or the government could really have a mechanism which could monitor the violation of what we call our Inland Revenue Act and the other related acts, and at the same time open up, I think, with a clear message that government will not open this, give such a opportunity in future, and will have required institutions, rules, regulation in place to avoid. I think that will be a good.
The question is, does this government have the morality to govern right now? Because we see the speaker himself having 7 members of his family in his staff. Then we heard the president initially saying that no members of the family will be involved in our personal staff. And now you have the Prime Minister's son as the Chief of Staff of the Prime Minister as well. So I'm not saying this is bad. This is what the government said, and this is what they're implementing at present. So can you expect that morality from this regime?
Yeah, I think that is where actually we have to fight in the sense we have to raise such concerns and develop. I mean, we have to
advocate for change.
And get people to communicate our objection towards such behavior. So I think now anyway, no, whether we like it or not, now government has a 2/3 majority, and at least there is a 4 to 5 years, at least 4 years to go. So during this time, now even we witnessed the previous government also, the politician did the same. What we could avoid this type of situation, not to avoid, actually minimize. How we could minimize, we have to actually get people to raise their concerns against these things.
Someone might say, someone out there who's watching the program might say, who probably voted in favor of the present regime might say, that is why a 2/3 majority, or nearly 2/3 majority was given at a general election. They can do whatever they want.
Actually, it was not the purpose as such, but there were certain concerns. I think
but you just heard Professor Kennedy saying the president was treated as a hero amongst the community when he was elected to power. So someone of the caliber of Professor Kennedy may say that they've been given that majority in parliament. They can do whatever they want to do and let them govern the country. You all don't have to do it.
No, I don't think that 2/3 majority was given by public I think empower government to do what it wants. I don't think, in particular lower middle class, they were very much critical towards the previous government with all the blunders it did in terms of managing economy, not managing, I think, and also how it governed. As a result of that, this government got the 2/3 majority, but at the same time, the people who voted this government have the responsibility to raise their voices when they see the government act against the principles that we all agree.
When talking about the previous government, the only thing that comes to mind is sleeping with the enemy. Dr. Dunu Singh, I just want to very quickly cross over to Professor Kennedy D. Gunawardena, Senior Professor of Accounting, University of Sri Lanka. Now, you said something very interesting, Professor. You said that the government does not have a plan. Now, I want to delve a little bit about this. When we are talking about 2021, when you say something of this sort, being a Senior Professor of Accounting at one of the best universities for accounting and commerce in Sri Lanka, the University of Sri Lanka, it's quite alarming. You are saying they do not have a plan.
Yes. I can give a little bit facts. Now, government had very, very good time after completion of the presidential election. But I said that in that time people thought about that the president as a hero. They missed the bus. In that time, you remember that people are expecting a military government also. Some of them are talking now it's good time to go to the military. Even we don't like or not, people are expecting like that. That is the time the government really missed the bus. This all what you talk about, the state owners, loss-making organization. Very easily they can convert to the departments or maybe a private public partnership, whatever, because nobody talk about in that time. If they had a good plan, very easily such a good things they can do. All these loss-making organization they can convert to the
Professor, can you tell me one organization in Sri Lanka which is loss-making at present can be made a joint venture or a private public partnership without the employees striking?
In that time,
one institution, tell me.
yeah, maybe the CTB. Right?
You are telling me the CTB in Sri Lanka could be made a private public partnership?
Yes.
Without the employees striking?
Yes. But only thing is, in that particular time, I said that this should be happening in that particular time period. Now we can't do anything. Now the system is gone. In that
so you're telling me, I want to get this right. So you're telling me,
just finished
right after the presidential election,
yes,
when the people considered the president to be a hero,
yes,
that is the time they should have done everything possible.
Definitely, there are many things they can do.
But the same government at that time is saying,
that is what I am telling, that they had a narrow
Ranil
view.
Wickremesinghe was the prime minister of the country and he was the person who was having a majority in parliament, henceforth they couldn't do anything.
But in
and
that
you
time,
are saying
in that time I think they all hand over
different.
to those people and they have their own people. Right?
So this is just a
no
facade.
opposition strong in that particular moment. And in that particular period, really, they had a good power and people respect a lot. And they can do whatever they want. But they didn't do. They went to the narrow-minded way to get the more election, get more power, rather than developing a country.
Right, so let's forget about missing the bus. Let's forget about missing the bus because we can't cry over spilled milk at the end of the day. Now we have to speak about the way forward. So what is the way forward for the country?
The way forward, according to the community views, right now, they want vaccine. They want, the clear mindset to do their day-to-day work.
But
they want to boost the country.
You're talking about a vaccine. We are in a country right now that we are talking about a supplementary indigenous medicine that was drunk by 50 odd parliamentarians in parliament, and you're talking about a vaccine. And you have the health minister who endorsed this by gulping down a few sips of this vaccine, and you're talking about a country right now who's looking forward for a vaccine. I'm trying to figure out what's happening.
It's interesting what you said, but I am talking about the community view. As a lecturer, as a professor, I'm in the state university system representing. I am responsible to the community. Community want vaccine because they want free mindset to go to work and do the job. And now everybody in the
So what about the thousands of people who were lining up to get this indigenous medicine a couple of days ago?
No,
don't they represent the community?
That's the media. That's the media. The media can do many things. I think I don't want to explain to you. You are also in the media, right? You are in the same business.
I wish, Professor, we can do things that the people expect us to do.
That's true.
Probably we will be governing the country much more better than the current politicians.
That is called ethical.
So I want to give an opportunity to Tarush to pose some questions as well.
Yes, thanks, Shamir. Dadisanper, I would like to direct this flow of discussion again back to you. Now the budget was presented, we saw the contents of the budget. Now the question comes down to the implementation of the budget. You spoke about the Right to Information Act and all that. How can we track the progress of the government in implementing the budget 2021? How can the general public of this country be updated as to how the government is keeping true to its promises? In your particular viewpoint, don't you think that a separate institution should be established to monitor the progress of the budget and let people know actually what's happening?
Yes, I mean the idea of a separate institution, maybe considered like an independent body tracking the budget spending is a good idea, and to some extent that type of surveys and tracking has been done
before, yes.
but maybe not in a massive scale and an ongoing basis, but it shouldn't obviously be another maybe state entity and then again state funded, and you know, but what would be more effective is actually, like you first said, if the ordinary person, ordinary citizen can also monitor this, right? Now, whatever these big lines in the budget, it all finally trickles down to some institutions and actions, right? It lies with the district secretariat, divisional secretariat, then the grammar niladaris, to the local government, to the provincial, right? And the ministries, some are directly, right? Now, that's what I even said before. If these, now we need to demand, and the media can play a massive role here to say, now show us these things that you promise, publish the information, put it in your notice boards, websites, and then give the timeline. I mean, not just a phrase without anything to measure, but it has to be measurable. So what's the timeline and the phases of the project, so that we can monitor milestones. Then this story has to go to the people. That's why I said media. And finally, now we have seen in certain situations where we were able to mobilize the community and raise awareness, they did follow up, at least with few projects that actually hit their day-to-day lives, you know, their bread and butter, or their ability to move, or their education or health. Then they went and asked the respective local government authority, and what is going on. You know, you said you're going to renovate the road, and it's not happening for months and months, and now what's going to happen to those money?
So how successful was this project? Because we're talking about 21 million people in Sri Lanka, and we're talking about one organization, Transparency International Sri Lanka. I'm trying to figure out how successful was this project, Nandishwari?
Yeah, I'm not saying about one project. It's the several actions that we have tried, and wherever we have tried, I mean, it was whatever within the funds we had. Certain local government institutions were assisted to get into proactive disclosure. Communities were mobilized through the RTI, and they are, like I told you.
But don't you agree? Don't you agree?
That's why I'm requesting help to get the message across. It's not about.
So I want to pause you for a second here and just quickly move to Dr. Priyanka. Dr. Priyanka, one of the key issues faced by Sri Lanka at present is economic literacy. Despite the fact that Sri Lanka has recorded a high number when it comes to literacy as a whole, economic literacy amongst the communities are very, very low. So do you think that a project implemented of this sort or of this caliber from Transparency International Sri Lanka is going to be the way forward for the country? Or must the education system itself be brought to a level that we speak about economic literacy more?
You are referring to the economic literature or financial literature?
Financial literature or economic literature or whatever it is, doing with numbers and understanding the growth potential of a country. Example, you can ask a layman, Sri Lanka is going to record negative growth this year. However, the country's government has forecast to 6.7% economic growth next year. Will that be understood by a layman?
I think very good question. I think we can broadly agree that the level of understanding remain low when it comes to economic indicators. I mean, whether when government or policy makers discuss things in GDP growth rate, foreign exchange or currency depreciations, and you know, when using such terminologies, to what extent ordinary people could understand really is something that we need to, you know, discuss more, and how to communicate economic matters or what affect them most in a language or in a way that they could easily understand. At the same time, I think I must add with respect to this budget monitoring, with respect to implementation, how people get to know this information, there are actually number of mechanisms. Again, thanks to RTI. Actually, Verite Research annually does a survey actually by filing RTI applications and collecting information. They try to report some relevant information just before the budget, how the government has delivered budget promises in the previous year. In some of the cases, the number of projects or the amount of expenditure as promised, how they have succeeded, and half the way some of the project, and sometime some of the project which have never started. These things are given. At the same time, with the budget for the next year, government also provide parliamentarian report of the progress of the previous year. That is also one of the source. And in addition, I think if you look at the government budget department website, that also provides some information. And at the same time, the government, I think, started some years ago integrated treasury management information system, so which actually provide information for government to get an idea. Maybe if you do some expenditure in say some DS office level, at least, I mean, now it is keep developing, but once developed, government get to know in terms of the financial progress as well as the physical progress, because that system could, information could be feed into. So those systems getting developed, but what is required is people really need to feel that they need information. What is lacking is here, we say that people must know and all these things, but how many people or who really want to get the information, who really care as such? Okay, I don't think that ordinary people care as such.
I want to add something. Professor, I'll give you an opportunity, but let's hear Dr. Anil, and then I'll come to you.
Would that be okay? So on the same point about the financial literacy, actually probably not. The government knows very well that the general public has a very the poor level or the low level of financial literacy. That could be the reason. My mind goes to a particular research done by Nicholas Ross in 1990. The name of the article is Governing by Numbers. It clearly explains how these numbers are manipulated to govern and putting here and there. So the same things are there in this particular budget, how the numbers have been manipulated, misinterpreted to mislead the general public. So that is one point. And today, so this is additional information. This could be a clue, kind of information to Securities Exchange Commission and the central bank. If I am not that much to some extent I am really aware of these things. If I were not, even though I am a senior lecturer, I could have been convinced by today's telephone call given by one of the companies called Prime Stockbrokers. But that is not a stockbrokering company in Sri Lanka. They promote foreign stocks. So tried to convince me, but I asked several questions. So later on, he asked me a question. So he realized that so it is not going to be easy. Then he asked me a question back saying that, so who you are, what is you? So he wanted to get my profession. I said, no, you don't want to know my profession. Please tell me why it is worth, because there are lots of risks. That fellow just told me that, so I can understand from your conversation, you are not you are an uneducated person. I said, yes, thank you. Maybe according to you, I am an uneducated. If I were educated, I could have been trapped to you.
Right. So I want to ask Professor Kennedy's thoughts as well, and then I want to switch back to...
Now, what you said, I think that lack of financial literacy is true. Now, I just give a small example. Now, you all have a bank account. Even you also have at least some money you have deposited into the bank. Did you read the annual reports of that particular bank? Whether your money is safe or secure, right? Suppose that any bank, in private bank or government bank, you have a certain money, right? Certain amount of money. But nobody checked the financial position of that bank, right? You remember recently there are some people, they never publish the annual reports, no balance sheet, no income statement, nothing, but community deposit millions of money in such a people's account. You remember the Sakpiti is one of the example. People lost all. Now that is what I want to tell you. People are greedy, right? They don't have such a financial information, lack of all these, nothing. They don't think about that. They look at the figures. Oh, figures is fine. They go.
But Professor Kennedy, isn't this expecting unrealistic standards? Like, is this how people in other countries operate? They read the financial statements of the banks before they deposit. Is that the norm?
True. In another country, in my own experience in the foreign environment, before you apply the job, you study the organization, you study all financial position, but not like a nice advertisement in the newspaper you have. But in Sri Lanka, maybe you have a good job, you lose because of the advertisement of the newspaper. Okay, it's a nice organization, you try to leave that good company and try to join. Maybe only few months you realize that company is bankrupt. Now this is a lack of financial knowledge. I think that it's our duty in the university system's duty, I think, to improve such a knowledge to the people.
Professor, if I can direct one final question to you. As a professor in accounting, now there have been countless allegations that the government has manipulated the numbers in this budget proposal. The opposition made the allegation, Dr. Anil also made the allegation. There have been allegations from a number of parties. Of course, this does not help Sri Lanka's case as far as creating a good outlook for investors to come and invest in Sri Lanka, for foreign banks to lend to Sri Lanka, and also for rating agencies like Fitch and S&P to continue to at least to upgrade our status. So is this true? As an independent analyst on this matter, as a professor, do you think that the allegations that the government has manipulated these numbers is true?
Certainly I can say yes, but 100% I can't say no, because the government audits are there and some banks have their internal audits. The thing is that auditors, they are not playing in the fine role.
A proactive role.
Yeah, proactive role. If they do such a role and they do their job improperly, I think these things we can get in advance.
But now with the audit
especially
services
the forensic audit, recently I think everybody going to introduce that. Right? Now these things are come up, now the new things are coming to the market, but most of the administrators also have a certain weaknesses. They automatically run in the government rather than bring something new to the, now look our e-commerce situation in Sri Lanka. The first wave to get the goods from this e-commerce site, like all these retail organization, I think we spend one night, I think over one night also the system is blocked, right? But they are not prepared to do that one, right? But in e-commerce started in the world in year 2000. In certain countries, I think 20 years back, certain e-commerce and the dot market is arises. But still in Sri Lanka is getting low. Now those are the kind of things, whatever the corruptions can happen, whatever the allegations happen, those things are happen because of the lack of knowledge, lack of new things, lack of using a new technology.
Sir, so you said that you answered in the affirmative that these numbers could have been manipulated to a certain extent. Is there any way, now the budget is already passed in Parliament, and like it or not, that is the budget for the year 2021. Is there any way that the government, the authorities concerned, can salvage this in creating a better impression for Sri Lanka in the international community?
That's little hard to answer that kind of a question, because the governments are independent, right? Another government, another country can't influence to us directly. But only thing is we have to follow, if we are not follow the targets or that certain achievements which in the budget proposals are mentioned, then we are in the variances are very far, we are far behind them. Then some people can raise the question, these are not realistic, or this can be some unrealistic figures, or maybe these are fraud document, whatever. That's the only way we can come up with the answer. Otherwise, directly we can't claim to this.
So, Dr. Anil Jayanta, interestingly, Dr. Dulusinghe spoke about implementation of budget proposals, and even Attorney at Law Nadir Shani articulated about the importance of tracking the budget proposals as well. My question to you is, every year, except last year, Sri Lanka has seen a budget being presented, and we've always seen the rabbit being taken out of the hat by the magician who's reading the budget proposal, convincing the public about what is on offer for the entire next year. However, unfortunately, when the year starts, maybe January 1st of a particular year, the magician tries to put his hand inside the hat, but never does a rabbit appear. It's an elusive trait of most of these magicians. They try, the hand is inside the hat, but never comes a rabbit. So implementation has come to somewhat of a standstill across the board with respective governments since independence in Sri Lanka. The budget proposals are just mere budget proposals to satisfy a certain section of the community. This is not a policy direction or gives us the green signal for investors to come and invest, isn't it so?
Yeah. Yes, actually, yes, you are right. So one area is just proper implementation. The other question also at the same time we can raise, so do we have or had we had so comprehensive economic plans and budget proposals to be implemented? So there are two things. To great extent, I see that part as well as of now. So what are the current problems that we are facing? Huge debt trap and the lowering GDP growth. So if we take last 20 years, so last year even before the COVID attack, like the hit, so the GDP growth, real GDP growth was 2.3%. So it was really declining. And the economy was not really staggering, like it's really declining. So that is one. And the gap between imports and export is widening. So these are the biggest issue. So these issues cannot be tackled unless you increase your the production of goods and services. So if you take at a glance,
now the government has a steadfast plan. We saw President Gotabaya Rajapaksa saying that the private sector should present policies for strong growth to government, and he also says that productivity is important. Farmers make 35% of the population of our country, hence agriculture is linked to the livelihood of 70% of the population, and then, there needs to be an increase in productivity in this sector, and the youth should be attracted to it. So the government does have a plan, but are all these practical? When you say farming today, people don't want to go and engage with farming anymore because it's not sophisticated in Sri Lanka yet. To bring in that sophistication, what is important is for the government to have a clear-cut policy, and that policy is missing in the budget, isn't it?
In a way, actually, so those policies, though they appear to be policies, they are mere statements. Even farming, actually there is an extent up to which we can create some value. It shouldn't be the traditional farming. There are lots of, I mean, we have lots of potential of using farming, and in the international or the global supply chains, avenues are there. So my concern is, so we have not put up all those things into a comprehensive plan. Instead, in isolation, different policies have been taken. I would just quote only one policy which was adopted by the West, especially the neoliberal economic policies in 1980s and 90s. So that is the policy now we are going to adopt. So that is none other than what we call financialization. So if you just put pump money into the economy, nothing would happen. But this government thinks that, so if you just bring money either by hook or crook, so there would be a development. So that could be the reason why sometimes they may promote these tax amnesties and all these things. In a way, even if you argue that, okay, so if money comes and that if this particular money goes for real production to some extent, from economic point of view, not from social point of view, so I do not agree with that. From economic point of view, in a way would be all right, because these policies are in a way vague. If you look at, but at the same time, government gives lots of tax concessions and the promotions to improve these. So 1 minute.
I have to interrupt you here.
No,
for a second
one minute. Just this fact is very important.
Yeah.
This fact is very important. Just take this.
Yeah.
In the stock market, last 20 years, we have only less than 300 listed companies. But today, Colombo Stock Exchange announced that number of accounts were double during this 3 months period.
Right. So
what does it mean? Like it's just pumping money into the stock market.
Okay.
Nothing happens in the production. That is my concern.
Dr. Anjanta, just for full disclosure, for those who are watching Face the Nation today, you were also a nationalist selected MP from
NPP,
the NPP as well, National People's Power, representing the National International Intellectual Organization. And the NPP's economic policies are not neoliberal economic policies, are they?
No.
However, you are today trying to say something else. You're saying neoliberal economic policies should be the way forward for a country like Sri Lanka. Am I right?
No. So we never promoted neoliberal economic policies. Right. So what is being adopted, I mean, so all the governments adopted the neoliberal economic policies.
Yeah, you said that neoliberal economic policies are the way forward.
No. So they are not suitable. So that is dangerous.
That is dangerous.
That is really dangerous. But I am saying that the present government is following even old-fashioned neoliberal economic policies.
No, but the JVP predominantly, the policies adopted by the JVP is not neoliberal.
No. Because actually neoliberal economic policies really create lots of distraction in the economy in terms of income inequality and lots of social issues. Because finally, neoliberal economic policies will end up with a market society. Market society is a place where everything is up for sale. This is what is happening as of now. Because just to get economic benefits, so you disregard the social differences, you disregard the environment. So they encroach all these things, because how come a particular government which is claimed to be a patriotic government to destroy environment and try to gain economic benefits? What you see, if you allow or open the doors for neoliberal economic policies, it is, of course, they do not worry about environment, they do not worry about the society, they worry about only the personal interest, maximization of personal interest at the expense of the public interest. So that is so dangerous. So we are vehemently against the neoliberal economic policies. We want to have a kind of economic policies which are really embraced with the participatory approach and the fair distribution of income, use of technology, development of human capital. So this is...
That is also a new version of the neoliberalization.
No, it is wrong. So neoliberalism is the thing...
So alternative.
No, that is wrong. That is wrong, sir. So neoliberalism is a totally... does not, regard anything except economic benefits for the personal gains.
So Dr. Anjanta, we of course will go home, but you'll have to go to the university again.
It's all right. Always we debate. Always we debate. So what I am saying is, because on other thing we need to understand, especially with this pandemic situation, isn't worth for us to talk and discuss from a holistic point of view, the social point of view, collective point of view, right. Rather than trying to maximize your own benefits.
I want to give Muad and Tarusha an opportunity to pose questions as well. Tarusha and Muad, the usual practice at Face the Nation is if you don't ask questions, someone else is going to ask questions. So, no, usually they do not ask you to pose questions apart from the first round, so you'll have to keep on questioning the panelists. So, I'll again give an opportunity to Muad to pose questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Shamir. So I'll go to Nadishani. So Nadishani, you all have been, TISL have been a strong advocate of procurement, especially throughout the past few years. What do you think this budget will help tackle the issues prevailing in the public financial and procurement process, the issues in that particular area? This budget, will it help?
We have been an advocate of not just procurement, but transparency in the procurement process. And that's what we've consistently said, that the procurement process has to be open, has to be in sense of to ensure accountability at all levels. So now I don't see this budget and a connection with this loophole we have. With the 20th Amendment, and Procurement Commission is also out, and in terms of the challenges we had, that procurements are not transparent, and especially maybe at the national level, when there is massive procurements are happening. So simple like tech solutions we have been promoting, like the e-procurement platforms. Like these have been implemented around the world in countries that are, that want to take serious steps to minimize fraud and corruption to creep into the process. Because this is a key issue, right? Because the moment there is procurement, corruption in procurement, so there is no open tenders, we don't know how the priority list was made, we don't know why a particular person was chosen, a particular supplier. I mean, the end result could be a poor quality equipment or whatever the facilities that we get. At the end, it can be the common man who has to face the consequences of that. Again, we can lose a lot of funds, valuable funds, because of the commissions and other such corrupt payments involved when procurement is not open and transparent. Can I just maybe add that we're talking about the budget, and the idea is that it's towards the development of the country, the socio-economic or holistic development. Now, in any country, one main barrier for the benefits of development to flow down to the people, especially to the ones who really need it, the most vulnerable, needy people, is corruption. Right, it's the corruption that creeps in. Right, we can have whatever really good proposals, but if we don't strengthen oversight which comes to Parliament needs to have oversight of public finance. The community, the people need to have oversight with regard to state-owned enterprises and the local government and whatnot. Then when there is no oversight, then it's not transparent, then it's difficult to ask questions. Yes, we have tools, but is it about telling, okay, keep filing RTIs? Yes, that's good. From the people's side, we would say keep demanding this. I think that we come back to the question of why people are not bothered about it. Maybe they don't have the adequate understanding, but also maybe it's our fault. It's like, the lawyers, we talk about law in such a manner that the normal people won't understand, right? I mean, the doctors to the specialists. I mean, I think our goal should be to articulate these concepts and principles in a way that a normal person would understand, would want to listen to us also. And you connect it to their lives. And we try to do this through the community interventions, and we want to do it more looking ahead. In the next couple of years, we want to mobilize people from all walks of life, from school children to the youth, to the mothers and fathers, and then the religious leaders, because if you talk about corruption or integrity, it's not a journey that only Transparency International Sri Lanka can, take forward and get victories.
Just to get some clarity on this, let's say Dr. Priyanga Dinusingh has a question right now, or he wants to go to RTI and get some information. So he gets the information required. What happens next?
He gets the information requires. Well, so it depends. Now, what often that has happened is when it's about a particular public service, a due public service not being granted to a particular person or a community, when such information is requested, why this is not coming, and if the reason is corruption, most of the time, or a pure inefficiency, because if they are asking because then that is
black
often
and white,
implemented.
it won't say corruption,
right?
In black and white, you won't find out whether it's corruption or inefficiency.
They won't tell us, okay, it's because this. What happens is that they will have to tell you some reason, and then quickly the institution takes action to find out, even if it's like a particularly, say, one unit, and that is where this has got stuck, then the information officer, then the information goes to the head of the institution, and they will try to find out, look here, people have started asking questions about the project. Why is it not done? What is the problem? So often what has happened is the trickle effect.
How successful was that during the previous regime after RTI came into play?
So it was successful. That's what I gave you several examples. But of course, our work has predominantly been in the subnational level among communities. It has been successful.
So you're trying to tell me that department heads and those who are responsible for projects have taken these RTI requests seriously.
Yes, very much.
And they've got to work because of that.
Well, in our experience, yes, and also we receive even we continue to receive many requests for RTI
what
training.
What is the success rate? Success rate, have you quantified it?
I'm unable to, but in terms of it's in most of the cases successful, and when information was not given, we facilitated the citizens or the communities to file the appeal with the RTI Commission, and 70% of the time.
What happened to the president's expenditure that you all were looking at, and you all didn't get?
The asset declaration.
Yeah, asset declaration.
The case is still pending.
And the president is not even in power.
The prime minister.
The prime minister is not even in power.
Previous
prime minister is not even in power. So what is the point of having all this?
But the case is going on.
Yeah. What is the point of having all this and more if the legal system itself is going to be prolonged? Anyway, so.
Dr. Anil, I would like to bounce back to your previous argument. Dr. Dunusinghe, earlier on in the show, you said that our growth rate as a country was even declining before COVID-19 emerged in the country, way back before March. Now, it is common sense to understand that when COVID-19 emerged in the country with the island-wide curfew that we experienced, that the economy is going to be downgraded further down below. Against such a backdrop, this was touched slightly earlier on in the show as well. Minister of Money and Capital Markets, Ajit Niwad Cabral, says that we are in a good position and we found money, and no matter what, what challenges are posed against us, we are going to keep, finding money. He says that there is light at the end of the tunnel, but to you, to me, and representatives of the general public of Sri Lanka, we can't see that light at the end of the tunnel. Is the government, fooling the people by saying this?
So you are exactly right. So there is no accountability held with these statements. All these statements have become mere statements, and they do not take responsibility of these things. So that's the reason why they say all these things to general public.
This was said foreign media, not to even Sri Lankan media.
Even to foreign media, to some extent. Actually, when he says, these representatives say something to the general public in Sri Lanka, there is no response. But whenever he says something to foreign media, so quick response was there. So that is where Citibank came forward and issued a letter saying that that is not the proper excuse, right? Denial of these things is not the excuse. You come out with a kind of a substantive proposal to show us, then that would be all right. So Citibank is not a small bank, so we know that. So that is the reason. So they are not going to keep silent to these mere statements.
Do you think the government is afraid to reveal the current dire economic situation of the country? Are they afraid?
In a way, because thing is this. Sometimes they might think that if you just reveal the realities of the economy, that may be taken by maybe other parties or maybe the various corners of the economy to criticize or just fight between and all these things. That also could be one of the reasons. And at the same time, government does not have a clear plan of coming out from this particular impasse. If they have a clear plan, they can show it. So especially in a crisis situation, so hiding information is really dangerous, because we do not know. Sometimes they also may not know. So that is one of the dangers. So in this kind of situation, especially to some extent, I have a doubt whether these politicians or the policymakers really know what's happening, or something else. So above them, so maybe big oligarchies, monopolies, or multinational companies are controlling them. Why I say that? Some contradictory statements made by some ministers. So they say that we do not know what's going on. So some ministers, some officials in the Ministry of Finance take decisions. How come? How have they become so powerful So in a way, so to take the decision to abolish the public utility commissions of Sri Lanka is another example.
Dr. Anil, you said the government didn't have a plan, and so did Professor Kennedy. And the future plan to save the economy of a country is a budget. Now, the government has presented the budget. So are you saying that budget 2021 is merely a facade, is it?
Yeah, of course. Actually, 2020 and 2021 both. And government may have a plan not to develop the economy, but to serve the selected personal interest. So if you want, I can look at some.
We need to, Dr. Ranjan,
just
we need to wrap up.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
The
because
controversial,
I need to give an opportunity to Sean
controversial
question.
proposals. I just take, just in a club, right? Whoever, individuals, Sri Lankan individuals, whoever who have taken loans in foreign denomination from 1st April 2018 are exempt from tax. So I do not understand the logic behind this, how that is going to develop Sri Lankan economy in 2020 and 21. Again, from 1st April 2018, non-residents, right? Not citizens. Our citizens are residents of other countries. There are lots of cases. Non-residents, whoever who have earned profit, they gain interest and discounts by investing in international sovereign bonds are exempt. So it is really targeted. The group, like, how come with this proposal, so economic development can be achieved?
Just
so it is to favor selected people.
Just
it
before
is bad.
we move over to Charlan, just a yes or no question. Do you think the budget 2021 is a facade? Yes or no?
Yeah, to great extent, yes.
Yes. My final question, Dr. Priyanka Dunasinghe, since we're running out of time. Now, this is about something that was a warning issued by Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, a former central bank governor. He said that fiscal consolidation, if not done right, will come and sting us in the back. And quite rightly so, it has. So in the budget for the year 2021, while we speak about bridging this budget deficit, while we speak about addressing our debt issue, of course, another way that the government, of course, can contribute to this is by fiscal consolidation. And has this featured prominently enough in the budget for the year 2021?
No, I think it is. We need to understand at this moment the economy has a what we call the demand shock and the supply shock. At this moment, if government take measures to increase revenue, that could have a negative impact on economy in terms of businesses. I mean, one can say that why not you target wealthy people and super rich companies and all these things. Those one can argue in that manner, but this is not the right time to go for fiscal consolidation, revenue-based fiscal consolidation, or the expenditure-based fiscal consolidation, because it could have it could further worsen the situation of supply shock as well as the demand shock. The best thing is at this moment, to my understanding, to find resources to invest. I mean, simply, simply support investment projects through multilateral or bilateral or through other means, and pump some money to activate the economy, because both supply side as well as the demand side right now in a very bad shape. So I think in this manner, in this context, government can think maybe from 2023 onwards, whether there is a possibility of revenue-based consolidation, fiscal consolidation in future. Certainly we have to go towards that. That is why government has promised like budget deficit to come down to 5%, then the debt to GDP ratio come down from 90 to say 70% and all these things. In addition to putting, increasing revenue, government need to introduce fiscal rules to make it binding governments to keep the budget deficit and the debt on track.
Thank you very much. We have to go for a short commercial break. When we come back, it's the final round. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. We are talking about where Sri Lanka heading today politically, economically, as well as in terms of accountability. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. We will be right back. Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. Our topic of discussion today revolved around where is Sri Lanka heading today, politically, economically, also in terms of accountability. We start off the final round with Professor Kendi D. Gunawardena, Senior Professor of Accounting, University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. Your 2 minutes, final 2 minutes starts now.
Thank you. In my personal view, at any cost, we have to give the vaccine to the general public. That should be definitely the government. They don't have any options without giving a vaccine. They can give a Ayurvedic drug supplementary, it doesn't matter. We don't want to worry about that. But vaccine is essential. But my issue is government, they don't have a plan to give a vaccine. Still, I can't see the vaccine. Even though WHO say 10% given from the total population, I didn't see any plan, any mechanism to distribute it. I think that very immediately to make the people happy and make the people's day-to-day work very active and without a fear to work, without fear to do the transaction. Even Western province is quite okay, but you can look at the other province rather than the Western province. People are not moving from one province to another province. No transaction happen, and it definitely affected their day-to-day businesses and activities. Without any hesitation, government want to make the plan and get the not these army forces and all. If they want, you can use them for a what do you call that, infrastructure kind of a things, but health ministries or health, especially we have very good medical doctors and engineers, we have to use them and introduce the vaccine as soon as possible. Maybe they can say that we need to have refrigerators, we want certain degrees of refrigerators, otherwise we can't do this one. That is not a question for the government. Government want to do whatever any cost. That is their job. I think they have to find the options, they have to find the mechanism, and they have to give it to the general public. Otherwise, no way to come up of this situation.
Thank you very much, Professor Gunawardena. Attorney at Law Adishani Pereira, Executive Director of Transparency International Sri Lanka.
Yes, now the Global Corruption Barometer is an assessment conducted annually by Transparency International, and the findings for Sri Lanka for 2019, where they take a representative sample from, representing all 9 provinces of the country as well, reveal that 25% of the Sri Lankans think it's okay to engage in some form of corruption to expedite obtaining public services, right? And then in terms of when asked about their trust and faith in 3 institutions, the government, the police, and the judiciary, the judiciary. Well, 73% have said that they have some trust in the judiciary, but with regard to the government, 47%, and with regard to the police as a public institution, 57%. Right now, while we as citizens think it's okay when it comes to getting our thing done, it's okay, you know, those are harmless type of small bribery, we think like that. But then we don't realize that the people in public institutions and the people in parliament, I mean, they are also people like us, no? They are not from a different palette and grown up with these kind of values. And then once you go there and you are entrusted with a huge amount of funds to disseminate, to manage, the temptation is more. Maybe the percentage taken or given, is the same. So here, so I am saying that and also maybe even the President's message on Anti-Corruption Day, the 9th, was telling that citizens should come to the place that they don't tolerate corruption. They despise corruption, right? And then his policy statement is very much talking about eradicating corruption in the public sector. So keeping, and as citizens, let's hold the state accountable in whatever way we want. And I think as the media and as educators and organizations such as us, let's take this message out to the people to let them realize two things, that there is a cultural aspect, like paying a donation to a school or giving a false address to get your child into the school is considered completely okay, right? Even it's my child, right? We don't think about, so let's start countering the cultural aspect, and religious leaders have a key role here. Meanwhile, let's communicate to the people that corruption at whatever scale, grand scale to public institution, will affect you. It will affect you. At the end of the day, you won't get the benefits that were promised. It will affect you, so you need to voice. And for the institutions, for the government, this is your chance to say that you will uphold the promises by bringing back the oversight. You're thinking of a new constitution, so bring back those mechanisms that would ensure oversight, that would ensure transparency in governance and accountability.
Thank you very much, Nadishani Pereira, ED, Transparency International Sri Lanka. Dr. Anil Jayantha, Senior Lecturer, Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, University of Sri Javardhanpura.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I have a very big doubt whether these policies or the budget policies, proposals and other economic policies are really drafted by these the present government or the politicians or officials. Rather, I would like to propose that so they are the mere proposals of MNCs and oligarchies, monopolies, coupled with neoliberal economic policies. Of course, this government is not in a position to come out with their own remedy or their own policy. The reason is that directly or indirectly, these are the people or politicians in this government is linked to these the benefits which would flow from these big companies. So that is the reason. So therefore, it is utterly disconnected what they say and what they do in the backdrop of patriotism and just building a national economy. It is utter lie. So these wrong policies, no doubt, would bring lots of difficulties to the general public in future, especially in terms of inflation. They would have to struggle to at least maintain the same level of the basic things, but they have to work more. That could be one of the reasons. Government also may have realized it. That could be one of the reasons why it was proposed in the government. Now you can do 2 jobs. No, it shouldn't be the way. Nowadays, because of the technology has developed. The government must say that no, you better work 6 hours, spend rest to enjoy with your family, do some social activities, engage in social discourse or something like so. Now you have to mind that general public, you will have to struggle to live in future for sure because of these wrong policies in terms of inflation. So what is the way out of this thing? So if we really want, actually we need to develop a comprehensive national economic plan which should be integrated. It cannot really operate in a disintegrated manner as it happens as of now. So one ministry tries to do something, other fellow tries to do something, and another person who try to get a big chunk of commission by doing something, trading, that and this. So it is not really a production economy. It is the opportunism. So this opportunity, the government should take a stern decision to do away with this opportunism. So it is difficult for the government, but that is the way out of this thing. If that is the case, so you would see a green light. But on the other hand, there is a responsibility for the general public as well. So government will not do this thing, but it is your responsibility to be aware of this thing, be proactive and raise your voices and come forward and realize that at the end of the day, you are going to be penalized. So it shouldn't be good in the name of mankind. So,
thank you very much.
yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Anil Jayantha. Finally, we have the baton passed on to Dr. Priyanka Dinasinghe, Senior Lecturer of Economics, University of Colombo.
Okay, thank you. I think now budget 2021 passed and now it has become became a law. So that hope that government will start implementing the proposals that it presented. And in particular, I would like to draw government attention on 3 areas. First one is to come up with policies which could improve productivity and competitiveness of the economy. It is key to increase our export competitiveness and to look for more opportunities in the world economy in coming years, in particular post-COVID context in the world economy. Second, it is important that government come up with the labour market reforms. Now the labour market is one of the area where the government must focus in a situation where the COVID-19 also provided some opportunities for testing, experimenting some of the things like flexible hours of working and work from home and various things. And at the same time, government must think of providing training to those who find it difficult to get jobs, maybe in particular school leavers, university leavers in the short run, as well as those who have lost their jobs at the moment due to the pandemic. I think it is high time for government to launch a comprehensive training program for them to keep their human resource development at a level where they could find jobs after the economy get recovered. The third and the last, it is very important that external finance, government look for external finance in terms of FDI or in terms of like money coming from through various other means. I think it is unless government injects some amount of money, at least say around 5,000 to 6,000 billion rupees in coming 2 to 3 years, I don't think that the economy get back to its previous momentum. So I think it is high time government seriously pay attention to some of the sources and tap. Lastly, I think how to combat this corruption. It is very easy that if teachers do not accept gift from the kids which they receive annually, that itself will give a good lesson for kids to learn that they don't engage in corruption. That is where around the country teachers accept gift from the kids. It is like you go naked. Simply.
So in other words, Dr. Dinasinghe, you are trying to say is, if the wives of the husbands question where the husband is getting the money from, corruption can end there as well.
Definitely. There is only one way. If wives ask how you got this money, when the husband bring money, that itself will be it is enough to end this corruption.
Now the government will take to heart that they should not get married and stay single. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Nadine Shani Pereira, Executive Director of Transparency International Sri Lanka, for joining us this evening on the show. Dr. Priyanka Dinasinghe, Senior Lecturer of Economics, University of Colombo. Dr. Anil Jayantha, Senior Lecturer, Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, University of Sri Lanka, as well as Professor Kennedy D. Gunawardena, Senior Professor of Accounting, University of Sri Lanka. Thank you very much, Charlotte, for joining us this evening as a journalist, as well as Muad Razik and Tharusha Kumar Singha. In terms of budget 2021, whatever the government is having under its sleeves, or whatever the government is having inside the black hat, my advice to you is never spend your money before you have earned it. Take care and good night.